my Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1605 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, returning to Toronto Mic'd for the first time since being elected as City Councillor for Ward 3 Etobicoke, it's FOTM Amber Morley. Welcome back, Amber.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to join you.
Glad to have you back in the basement. Now, the first time you dropped by, do you remember your first appearance on Toronto Mic'd?
I do. It feels like a million years ago, but also yesterday. It was a lot of fun.
About 2.5 years ago. So it was August 2022, and that was episode 1101. So if somebody wants to learn more about you, we chatted for a good hour about how difficult it is to defeat an incumbent in municipal politics. It almost never happens, right, Amber?
That's right. We were the only one to do it in the last election.
So is that right?
Mm-hmm. The only candidate to unseat an incumbent. All the others had been vacated, so we're otherwise open.
So how much credit do I get for you winning that election?
Well, we know how influential you are, not only in the city of Toronto, but especially here in Etobicoke. So definitely a big nod and a shout out, and thank you to you.
Well, thank you for even a nod and a shout out. I'll have more gifts for you later. Better than a nod and a shout out. But I realize I have an hour with you. You're a very busy woman, but right off the top, how have the first couple of years in office been for you? Like, how is it going?
Well, it's definitely going. It's been quite a whirlwind. It's a massive job with a huge amount of responsibilities. I went in with it, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and putting my hand up for a lot of different pieces of work.
That's what we like about you.
Yeah, I try to keep that energy. But it's hard to keep when you say yes to everything and aren't really working towards a work-life balance. So here we are at the midterm. We're 2 years in, and I'm finally starting to apply some lessons learned around better workload management and, prioritizing the things that matter most to myself and certainly our community. So we've lightened our load in the midterm check-in, and we're working to continue to improve as we move forward.
Okay, but if I read between the lines, are you suggesting that you need to take some time for Amber?
Yeah. Self-care is not selfish is literally the sticker
because
I put
you'll
on my
burn out,
laptop
right?
Today. Yeah, exactly. After year one, I was definitely feeling a significant amount of burnout. And so we've been continuing to build our team, establish our best practices and course correct along the way as we do.
Interesting. You were appointed as one of our deputy mayors.
I was, yeah.
Okay, so firstly, let's tell, of course, I know everything, Amber, you know that. But for those who don't know, what the heck is a deputy mayor?
So in the city of Toronto, there are 4 deputy mayors, one that is a statutory deputy mayor. My incredible colleague, Deputy Mayor Malik, is the downtown sort of deputy mayor as well as the statutory. So in the event that, God forbid, anything were to take place or our mayor stepped aside for any point of time, the statutory deputy mayor actually has all of the responsibilities to sort of fulfill that role. The other deputy mayors are a little bit more symbolic, and it's a decision of the mayor. They get to appoint, and as of now, we've got Deputy Mayor McKelvey representing Scarborough, we've got Deputy Mayor Cole representing North York, and myself representing Etobicoke.
Why do you think you were tapped on the shoulder by Olivia Chow as one of her deputy mayors?
Other than being fabulous? Just joking.
No, that's a good reason. I think that if you're fabulous, that's a good reason. But like you're like you're new to this?
I think I'm young, I'm energetic. I think I really do represent the city in a way that hasn't been seen at City Hall for ever. So yeah, and obviously very aligned with Mayor Olivia Chow in terms of her values. I remember knocking on doors for her back, I think it was the 2014 election when she first ran for mayor. So I was really proud to be one of the first councillors that were sitting at the time to come out and do an endorsement of now Mayor Chow. So I think that, may have curried some favor. And again, I think really just the alignment and my real passion of moving the work forward is, I think, part of why I got that recognition and confidence from the mayor.
Okay, Amber, so this is going to be a very comfy chat. Again, glad you're here. It's a safe space. Say whatever you want. But I will also have questions from people along the way. And one you've kind of almost answered already. So I want to shout out James Early, who says, congratulations to Amber on her deputy mayor role. How does one manage the role of councillor for Ward 3 at Etobicoke Lakeshore with the added responsibilities of deputy mayor? I suspect if you look out for Toronto's best interests, you're looking out for Ward 3, or should it be the other way around? So just how are you able to balance the fact that you represent us in Ward 3, the greatest ward in the city, of course, and then again, you're now deputy mayor and there's maybe a bigger...
Yeah, a bit of responsibilities. Yeah, for sure. So thanks for the question, first of all, and thanks for the congratulations. We have an incredible team that supports me in my role. I've got a team of 9 staff, including a chief of staff and a deputy chief of staff. So we're pretty well.
This is impressive. You came by, you just waltzed over here a couple of years ago, and now you got 9 people.
Got a corner office at City Hall. It's a whole thing.
Okay, and shout out the person to your right.
Yeah, so big shout out to Usli. Usli's my deputy chief of staff, a long-time friend and colleague who's been with me since the very first election. And so Usli actually does a lot of the work to support the deputy mayor role. And a lot of that is really just stakeholder relations, stakeholder engagement. One of the things we're doing this afternoon after we're done with you here, Mike, is heading up to Etobicoke Center to drop off a scroll for one of our long-time local restaurants. So we do...
what does that mean, a scroll?
A scroll.
What the heck is that?
Yeah, so there's a business in the community that's been operating for 25 years. I Star up on Dixon Road. It's Somali community based and owned. And so they are a hub. It's a 24-hour shop. They've got incredible food and they've been serving the community in an amazing way. So we're just going to drop off a little congratulatory recognition for them to thank them for all that they do in the neighborhood.
How do we get one of these scrolls for Great Lakes Brewery?
Yeah, well, next milestone that they've got, reach out to us and we'd be very happy to accommodate.
Okay, they got, I think the big 4-0 is only a couple years away. I'm going to talk to Peter Bullitt over there, and we're going to get, at that point, you might be mayor. I don't know. I'm going to talk to you about that later. But we'll get a scroll to Great Lakes.
Yes, we'd love to do that. We love our friends.
And to help, grease the wheel here, I've got some fresh craft beer for you right there, Amber. That's from Great Lakes Brewery in your ward.
It is the holiday season. We won't say no to that. I appreciate it deeply. And yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, more gifts coming, but I wanted to get to another question here. Well, first of all, a fun fact before I get to Eric's question. So in 2018, you ran for councillor of Ward 3,
Correct.
Okay? And you had 27.19% of the votes in 2018, okay? Mm-hmm. Then you appeared on Toronto Mic'd, and you got 46.44% of the votes. Like, that's incredible, because we talked about how difficult it is to defeat an incumbent. Mm-hmm. So I just want to read Eric's note here, and then I'm going to get Scott's note to piggyback on Eric's note. But Eric writes in, how did she win so decisively? The incumbent had Ford-style popularity. Congratulations to her. Like, how? I mean, people are still. I don't think they should be surprised, because I picked you to win in the 2022 election. But you went from 27% against the same guy who had won how many times in a row, and then suddenly 46.44%, beating the incumbent. That's incredible.
Yeah. I think there was a couple of factors that went into it. And one of them being that the ward was expanded significantly very quickly before the election. So the ward expansion happened, I think, officially in about July of the election year, right. 2 or 3 months after the election started. And so a lot of our residents in the northern part of our ward, north of the Queensway, I don't think really had any familiarity of the former councillor.
Mark Grimes.
That's the one. And
If you say his name 3 times, he might appear.
He might appear.
So that's twice. We're done now.
So I think, some folks looked at it and, okay, well, who's the incumbent, who has the experience, and whatever went into their calculation of who they chose to decide. And folks had 4 years under the representation from the former counselor to get to know, them, as well as for us to engage with them through the second time around, right? And I think the other thing that boded really well was that we had such a strong showing in the 2018 election. And I think it gave folks the confidence that we were a serious candidate, that there was a groundswell of support already starting, to come our way. And I worked my butt off to get to the finish line.
You did. You were out there working hard. And again, it's been said already a couple of times, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I'm still pinching myself 2 years.
Well, again, you said it. No other incumbent who ran again lost except for our incumbent, because you beat him. You beat his pants off.
And shout out to our community for showing up and delivering that win for us and for me.
And I do remember, because this name will come up again in a moment, very shortly, but Doug Ford, you ever heard of this guy?
No, of course. Of course we know the premier.
Right. So he, I remember now, he reduced size of council, went down to 25 councillors or whatever. Right. And then it's not the same riding that Grimes had won how many times before? So
many.
Okay, look, there's always makes some sense here. Scott, by the way, says Amber's my counselor. After Grimes, we were glad to have someone more progressive and less creepy. Again, this is Scott's words. Okay, I'm just reading it verbatim. If I had to describe her tenure so far, it would be, and this is Scott's words, careful. Don't rock the boat. Don't stick your neck out, etc. Fine, and again, she's more progressive than many, and maybe ask her if that's deliberate. So Scott's curious, because you're only 2 years into this thing.
That's right.
You can't come in like a bull in a china shop. Like, this
Some
is politics, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, I'm not actually the biggest fan of politics themselves, but I do believe deeply in the democratic process, and I believe in the importance of leadership. And so I really try to take that seriously as I navigate this very difficult role, understanding that you can't please everybody, and there's always going to be, a lot of considerations, a lot of different opinions, et cetera, et cetera. So I do believe that representation is important. I want people to feel confident in me as their representative, and so I try to keep it uncontroversial and thoughtful and considerate as I move forward. Certainly, I am a progressive. I'm a young woman of color who grew up low income, so I have a lived experience that informs my politics and informs my values and approach, which I am very deeply grounded in and serious about. But yeah, I don't want to ruffle feathers along the way, right? We're here to get things done, not upset folks. So people are already upset enough as it is. So we try to really be as unifying, collaborative, and thoughtful in our approaches as possible.
And I'm about to ask you about Bill 212 here. But a question came in from Ryan, who's curious, what's your relationship like with the other Etobicoke councillors? Particularly, he's wondering, how is your relationship with Holiday?
Yeah. So I have a good relationship actually with my council colleagues. Councillor Holiday obviously chairs our community council and has been a fairly long-standing member of council. His father was there before him, and actually I came into City Hall as a staffer, just as former councillor Holiday Senior was heading over to the province. So, and again, this is for me where the politics versus the leadership and all of that kind of comes to pass. We don't agree politically. I think it's clear to see based on sort of the way that our votes come down and the positions we take on different issues. We definitely have a very different lived experience, I think, and worldview, generally speaking, which obviously will inform our politics and our leadership style. But I would say that Councillor Holiday, particularly, is a good colleague. He's kind and considerate as a person and as a colleague, and I really appreciate that. And I think it's important for us as leaders and as representatives to show what it can look like to disagree fundamentally in a lot of important issues, but still be able to get along and be civil in the process.
All right, before I ask about Bill 212 here, your ward includes the Bloor bike lane in southern Etobicoke.
Sure does.
Okay, so now there's a lot in that Bill 212. So I'm just specifically going to ask about this plan to rip out bike lane infrastructure. Okay. I need to know, I'm looking you in the eyes right now. You know, I'm a 12-month a year cyclist. And I have actually, I'll be on the Bloor bike lane after your recording. I have a date with my oldest, and I will be taking the Bloor bike lane from Royal York to Runnymede. That's happening. You know, cameras can follow me, okay? If Carl Hansky is listening, cameras can follow me. What are your thoughts on this part of Bill 2112, which is already passed?
Yeah, I think it's silly to use a quick, a short word. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's disappointing. We are really glad to see the community residents in the city of Toronto who appreciate and understand the value and importance of this infrastructure turning up and turning out and, you know, protesting and showing up to whether it's the MPP's office or down at Queen's Park. It's important that we use our voices and that we're really clear as a neighborhood that, and as, you know, community generally, that this matters and that there are a lot of contributing factors to congestion, but ripping out bike lanes is not, in my humble opinion, a wise or thoughtful way forward.
So to read a specific question about it, then I have more questions about these bike lanes. So their plan to rip out protective bike lane infrastructure is not evidence-based. I'm reading this question. And isn't about congestion or safety. Why is the premier hell-bent on ripping up well-planned municipal lanes when he knows it will worsen congestion, cost millions, and cost lives?
My honest answer, I think it's largely politically motivated. I think when we examine, you know, typically the small percentage of people who show up to vote and the interests of, you know, an even smaller subsection of that group who are influential, evidently, or who respond to polls and things of that nature, it's an unpopular thing amongst those folks. And so I think it's really honestly to score points politically and to demonstrate responsiveness to concerns from residents who have been inconvenienced. Absolutely, we acknowledge that. Change is bumpy sometimes, right? And it takes patience and it takes time. But there are a number of people who don't feel that they have the time or evidently the patience to exercise as we navigate our growing city and standing up, you know, best practices. So yeah, it's really frustrating because as the question very clearly stated, and I think is a fact, a provable fact, this is not evidence-based.
Well, every report you can read on it suggests that this will actually worsen congestion. So it's and cost lives, of course, which is paramount. But has the city, because I mean, again, I've had Keenan on every quarter, Ed Keenan from the Toronto Star, and we've had discussions about this encroachment, like that this is clearly, is there anything, we laugh about, is there anything more municipal than bike lanes, right? Like if you were going to write down the things, this belongs to the federal government, you know, healthcare and education. Okay, this is provincial responsibilities. And then you were going to write down the things that belong to a city. Bike lanes would be at the top of the list. Oh, yeah. So the fact that, you know, he's even in this space is like, you called it silly. I think that's probably a pretty good word for it. But does the city of Toronto have any plans to maybe, because the bike lane's still there. I mentioned I'm going to be on it today. So it's not gone yet, but I consider it's going to be imminent before it's been dug up in the middle of the night or just disappear or whatever. But please, is there any loopholes you've been kind of investigating? I don't even know if I should call them loopholes, but Toronto Boris writes in and wonders, has the city thought about converting any of these bike lanes into bus lanes as some sort of a way around this Bill 212? Is there any hope? Or are these things done like dinner?
So the reality of the way our systems work is a lot of, you know, political discussions are had and objectives are, you know, raised, and obviously legislation is passed in this case. But ultimately, in order to implement and realize anything, there are civil servants who are the actual experts in these areas,
Right.
that are required to, get together to create, operational plans and figure out the way forward. So I know for sure that our civil servants, specifically those in the Transportation Services Department, responsible for this type of infrastructure, are very actively engaged with their provincial counterparts, sharing information, sharing facts and evidence, and trying to identify in the corridors in question what a possible path forward will look like. In some instances, the part of the legislation is if in the event that a traffic lane is removed, is when they would need to come out. So I know like alternate modeling, for example, of is it possible in some of these corridors to reinstate an additional traffic lane and not have to take out the bike lanes. So there's a lot of, complex conversations happening amongst experts to figure out a path forward here, and obviously to be as much as possible aligned and responsive to the legislation that governs us from the provincial government. But it's tricky, it's complicated, and it's a very live issue.
I didn't finish Toronto Boris's question.
Oh,
I see here because no, that's not on you. That's on me, because he points out that currently the red painted bus lanes are for buses and bikes, and he thinks this might be a go around for the Premier's plan. So just throwing it out there, maybe we just designate these bike lanes, bus lanes, and then everything kind of remains the same.
There's a suggestion.
All right, so put that in the suggestion box. I'm glad to hear that you do not support Bill 212, and that so the city is going to do everything within its power. I mean, what can you do? It's one of those things where it's like you don't have this power. So I can tell you this, and I've pledged this on social media, that if and when the Bloor bike lane is removed, I'll make it my job to take a lane on Bloor Street every day of the week when I go for my bike rides. I will take a lane and then let them all honk at me and threaten me and scream at me because I don't care. Yeah. I want my kids to be safe biking this city.
There you go. And I don't think you'll be alone in that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It'll be me, Lanrick, and all the bike people. But just to point out the obvious, which this came up at a recent episode we did at Palma's Kitchen. By the way, I have a lasagna in my freezer for you from Palma Pasta.
Lasagna is my favorite. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, it's in my freezer for you. Okay, thank you, Palma's Kitchen. This came up, but if you know the city and you bike in the southern Etobicoke here, then you know you've got a separated bike lane on Eglinton. So we're going up Eglinton. Mm-hmm. We're on the waterfront trail right now. Of course, I love it, the waterfront trail. I took it to the Scotiabank Arena for the Raptor game yesterday night. Okay, very cool. So we got that. But between Eglinton and Lakeshore, what is that, 10K or something? There is no east-west corridor for a cyclist to have a bike lane. That doesn't exist. Mm-hmm, so, right. You at some point at Jane, there's a net has a bit of a bike lane and you can kind of whatever, but which is not, by the way, still quite a bit now. So I know Alan Zweig's going to tune out if I keep going on the bike lanes, except please do what you can and let me know if you need me to, I don't know, chain myself to something. Maybe I chain myself to the bike lane on Bloor Street.
I think if you keep using your voice and your platform to advocate for a better way forward is very helpful, and it really helps people assure they are not alone in wanting to have rational, thoughtful solutions to our existing challenges versus creating more chaos, which is what I think ultimately the result of this legislation will be.
One of my concerns is that when we remove this Bloor bike lane, it will increase the number of customers that Ridley Funeral Home has. Okay, so what I have for you, again, this is really right in your wheelhouse. This is in New Toronto, 14th and Lakeshore. So these are your constituents as well. But Ridley Funeral Home has sent over a measuring tape for you, Amber.
That is very sweet. Thank you, Ridley. We are neighbors. We appreciate Brad and the team out there. They were out giving out hot chocolate over the Santa Claus parade, which always is a treat, and I look forward to it. So big shout out to them.
So shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, shout out to Great Lakes Brewery, and Monaris is at Bloor and Islington. Oh. Is that your we're still there, right? Okay. Yeah. And they have sent over a wireless speaker for you.
Very nice. Thank you. That's very kind.
You can listen to anything you like, but you must listen to Season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego, who went to Winnipeg to collect inspiring stories from small business owners. So you can enjoy that and be inspired there. Okay, couple of housekeeping notes. One is, are you joining Blue Sky? Because there's a Councillor Amber Morley Blue Sky account, and the concern from Mark Shaw is that it's a fake account.
I am not currently on Blue Sky, so thank you for the flag, Mark Shaw.
It's CLLR Amber Morley.
My team, have they tweeted anything or whatever? What are we calling Blue Sky? What's a message on Blue
post.
Sky? Posted. Okay, yeah, sorry.
Well, even the Twitter's not Twitter anymore. But
there you go.
Any plans? I know I should look at your.
Well, we're both making a face
only
right now.
that's the only place I live now.
Okay, no, that's wonderful.
Because it's a cesspool of Nazis.
I've heard that there's great feedback about Blue Sky, and I don't actually myself participate too much on social media because of that cesspool energy.
Okay, bring that, and the first time you visited, I played 311. They have a song called Amber. Amber is the color of your energy. Okay?
I think of
bring
it,
that.
actually.
Yeah, beautiful song too. Okay, that should be your theme song. And please bring that energy to Blue Sky.
Yeah, you know what? Well, first we need to investigate who's reporting to
It's
be us
not
on
you.
Blue Sky.
Okay.
But I appreciate that, and I do think we will be joining because it sounds like the kind of place we want to be.
Okay. Good to hear. That was Mark Shaw who wanted you to know about that fake account on Blue Sky. It's not you. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. My staff thanks you
That's
as well.
right.
They will get on it.
Now, David writes in, can you ask Amber how, and again, I'm just reading verbatim here, Amber, how it's appropriate to put a shelter in an area that is approximately 3.2 square kilometers that already has 12 government-assisted housing projects. Long Branch has one. By the way, this is specific to New Toronto. I know your jurisdiction is more than New Toronto, but that's our neighborhood here. Another issue is that this shelter, which looks like it could be primarily or solely for adults, is going to be placed within 500 meters of two schools. Can you speak about, this is only a recent announcement. When we booked this visit, this hadn't even been announced. But there will be a shelter in New Toronto. I can't remember, 3rd and Lake Shore.
66 3rd Street.
Right. Can you speak to why it's going there and maybe what it will be?
There are many Torontonians, unfortunately too many Torontonians, who don't have a place to go, a warm place. And today, as the winter is upon us and it's cold outside, I trust people could put their empathetic hats on and consider what it would be like to be in a situation like that. We, as an office, have dealt since we've been in office with multiple situations of folks camped out in our parks, in local community center parking lots, and in other inappropriate spaces without dignity and without the kind of wraparound supports that they need to get back on their feet and to be successful in our city. So as I'm sure folks can appreciate, there are huge costs, not only to the individuals themselves in terms of the challenges that they're continuing to navigate, but as a city, right? Whether it's short-term temporary shelters, hotel shelters, which we're working really hard to get out of because it's inexpensive and inefficient. We need, as a city, to have permanent spaces or temporary spaces that are purpose built so that people have somewhere to go that is not our local parks or our local public spaces. So I think it's a multifold attempt as we work really hard on the housing file to prioritize building more housing, getting more affordable housing online and things of that nature, which we've made really big strides on since Mayor Chow's come into office. But in the short term, these are the realities. My team's worked incredibly hard. It takes months to resolve an encampment situation, finding appropriate spaces, et cetera, because there are none. So if people want to call us to be concerned about the impacts of having an encampment close by within 10 meters of your home or whatever the case may be, we want to be able to respond with real solutions, not clearing people out who have nowhere to go, overburdening our local Tim Hortons and, coffee shops and TTC stations and buses, which is what we're seeing and we know has a real impact. We're trying to stand up real solutions that are going to address these problems in the long term.
Okay, so there's a need in the city to have more shelter space for our unhoused.
Correct. A sincere need.
A sincere need, right. Now, the question that kept coming was basically, isn't New Toronto doing enough, like punching above its weight somehow? And they keep referencing this 12 government-assisted housing projects and everything in New Toronto specifically. So New Toronto was chosen because...
So there were a list of 100 potential options that city staff assessed. I'm sure folks can appreciate that there are a number of different criteria that need to be met for a site to even be, considered eligible. Right. So this was one of those sites that was shortlisted because of some of the local supports that are and local partners that are in the community, providing wraparound supports, providing primary care, the access to transit and things of that nature. So it's, we really do try to do a fulsome assessment of all of the available options. And of course, we need to work with whatever rises to the top of the list. And in this case, the site in our ward on 3rd Street in New Toronto is the one.
When is it going to open?
Good question. I believe sometime in 27 or 28. We are at this point, we're still far out from that, right? And it's really critical, and we are very deeply devoted to the community engagement process, to hearing from neighbors. There's a wonderful local group, actually, shout out to Public Progress. Bruce Davis over at Public Progress is working with the city to facilitate the engagement. So they've got, a hotline, frequently asked questions. We will be holding space for multiple community meetings and touch points.
Oh, to interject, so this is good that you're going down this road, because IHAM wrote in, he had a few things that have kind of been covered by that first, because he's concerned about daycares and schools within 500. Like, what would you say to IHAM up there? Because his big question at the end is, what can be done to push back on this? That's from IHAM. But it sounds like there's some consultations happening right now.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to be a really intensive process to start the conversation, right? The site's been selected, but it needs to be responsive to the community, and it needs to reflect the needs, concerns, and desires of the local community. And that's the work that we will be doing over the coming number of months and probably into the year before there's a final design and, all the operational pieces come together. We know that we got to get this right. We know that there are real concerns and real fears from residents about what this might mean and what potential negative impacts there could be. We have seen this done well in other areas of the city, and we know what it takes to get to a good place where we're implementing in a thoughtful, responsible way where residents feel respected as stakeholders in this process.
So IHAM is under the impression that this is his words, upper class neighborhoods don't have to don't have such shelters being built in their neighborhoods, and that it seems to happen in places like 3rd and Lakeshore. I know. So that's a quote. That's a direct quote here. I don't even agree with the premise, except he seems to think that places, he specifically talks about areas like High Park with a more wealthy demographic, don't have to carry some of this burden.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the question. I think, again, right, there's so much nuance to this. We can't just plop something anywhere. We've got to look at, what do we own? What is surplus? What is serviceable in terms of, the site and things like that. Like, there's so many considerations that go into this. It's not just as simple as like closing your eyes, putting on a blindfold, and putting your finger down on a map, right?
You don't just play darts.
Yeah, it's quite an intensive and thoughtful process just to get to this place. And again, that work continues before we get shovels in the ground.
And the bottom line is the city of Toronto needs this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We literally had 12 individual folks encamped
Yep.
immediately beside a daycare in our ward, up against the fence of the daycare. That is not something we can accept. And the only way forward from that is to actually create solutions that people that are more supportive, and better resourced, etc. But I understand the concerns and the fears that people have. I truly do. But I also know that we all need to dig a little deeper and do a little better for each other and ourselves.
Look, you weren't city councillor when they were going to put the shelter at 8th and Lakeshore, okay,
No.
right by the Rogue Byway. And you can ask Monica about this afterwards. There was a protest outside against this.
I saw pictures of it recently.
Right. And I that guy's on my street. Oh, there's my buddy there. And I never forgot the faces I saw. I said, we need a protest in favor of these shelters for our unhoused. I said, I will lead the charge there. So when I'm taking that lane on Bloor,
Yeah.
maybe I'll have signage that this whole NIMBYism pisses me off, to be very honest.
We need more
It's a
neighbors
big
like
city.
you, Mike. Absolutely.
Biggest city in the country.
Exactly.
Look it up.
Exactly. And not everybody here has the same access to opportunities as the rest of us, right? So, it's the holiday season. I think it's important for all of us to think about how we can be better neighbors, how we can be better individuals, and how we can appreciate that someone else's problem is our problem. And the more we ignore it, the bigger it gets.
So one more question on this front, because I think this is a fairer question. It's from Brent. And Brent says, could you ask Amber about what is the plan for service improvements to account for the increased needs of the residents of this new home? LAMP, a place you're very familiar with, Amber, and if you listen to our first visit, you'll learn why. LAMP is significantly understaffed and can barely manage the needs of the community today. At last check, there are 0 family physicians accepting new patients in the New Toronto area, and the closest hospital is 13 kilometers away with no direct transit routes, or 7 kilometers to the closest urgent care. Again, with no direct transit route. So just speak to that. And again, this is not opening until maybe 2028, but of course there will be a need for these support institutions.
Absolutely. So on the healthcare piece, I would just say, yes, we're very lucky to have primary care available at LAMP, for example, and unfortunate that the entire healthcare system is incredibly under pressure right now.
So Doug should focus on that maybe instead of the bike lanes in Toronto.
You got it.
Oh, I saw it today on social media that he's going to meet with Trump about the tariffs. So he wants to be Prime Minister and Mayor of Toronto, but he has no interest in being Premier of Ontario.
I won't argue or comment on that. But what I will say is that, we do absolutely need more engaged leadership around the healthcare issue, because whether it's mental health, addiction, again, and talking about the necessary wraparound supports and the necessary pieces that we need people to have access to in order to be able to be successful. It's not all on the city, and the city always punches above our weight and stepping in areas that are a little bit outside of our purview, but that we ultimately pay for and have responsibility for one way, shape, or form. So just in terms of the wraparound support piece and the resourcing around that, the intention around this shelter is that it will be a city-run site. I took it upon myself to go visit another city-run site similar to what is under consideration here, to meet with the staff, to speak with some of the people who were calling that space home, in the short term, and to understand exactly what it was that the staff do every day, what other wraparound services and supports are available, et cetera, et cetera. So I have a lot of confidence in the approach that the city has. There is an incredibly dedicated group of people, and this is like really heart work. This is soul work. When you're taking care of people that are living rough, that are unhoused, that are needing to get connected, it really, I think, is commendable and important. And so anyways, there's a great number of folks at the City of Toronto who do this work, get people connected to skills training, get them connected to all kinds of things to get onto their feet, get them onto housing wait lists, help them find long-term affordable housing, getting connected to other level of government supports as well, so that they can move through, out of, and into stability once they leave the shelter system. And so that will all be in place, and that will all be part of the operational plan that we stand up for this site coming to our community.
Okay. I realize I promised an hour with you, and I keep my promises down here, but I might need several hours. Who knows? But I'm going to
we'll come
change
back
the
again,
channel
don't
here.
worry.
You better come back, please. Just for the lasagna, at least, and the fresh craft beer. Ian wants to know, what moment or moments are you most proud of from your first 2 years as a counselor?
Great question. Thanks, Ian. I haven't quite gotten to the holiday season yet, so I'm not in my reflective mode, but I have been looking forward to having some time to unplug and really think about that question more intentionally. But something that came up this past year that I was proud of, and I think was fairly well received, was our work to advocate and stand up for something that I understand is still, I don't know how popular it is amongst the general public, but it was something I felt strongly about, was the renaming of Young Dundas Square to Sankofa Square. And so, that had been a fairly contentious and controversial issue. But I think it's something we needed to stand firm on and to see through for a lot of different reasons. I don't often give speeches at council because I like to save my words for when they matter most or when they mean the most. But I did let the spirit move me that day at the debate, and I stood up to say my piece, and I was quite proud of how that landed, because I think a lot of people were impacted by that, and had reached out to share thanks and just sort of acknowledging the importance of not only my sharing about my perspective on this work, but also the value of having a leader who wants to follow through on the commitments we make and not just say things for popularity, but actually really, really commit themselves to equity, inclusion, truth, reconciliation, like all of the kinds of words that we all love to throw around, or think about buzzwords. But there's a lot of real work and energy and attention that needs to go into these things to continue to move forward in a better way.
All right, pop quiz hotshot. What does Sankofa mean?
Sankofa is an African proverb that means to go back and sort of reflect and go back and get it kind of thing, so you can move forward in a better way. And I think that's really reflective of the moment we are at as a society, as a civilization. And I think it's really important work that we all should be reflecting on in our own personal lives, in our history, our shared history, and as we vision and co-create the future that we will all share.
Okay, I was actually hoping our women's professional hockey team would be nicknamed the Toronto Sankofas. Like I was lobbying. You can ask Ed Keenan that. He's got the season's tickets. Okay.
Yeah.
Luke writes in, hello to Luke Murphy, good Irishman. He wants to know if you have an update on the Park Lawn GO station.
Yeah, so the Park Lawn GO station is a piece of work that we're excited to
You're going to stop right there. It's
forward.
A piece of work.
That's a better piece of work. So that was a site we inherited, as if folks may know, as part of the redevelopment of the old Christie Cookie Factory in Park Lawn. There are quite a large number of high-density buildings coming to that site.
Right.
And as part of that, there requirement for the developer to deliver a Park Lawn GO station. So there's been a lot of pre-construction work underway. There's just one last sticking point that we've been convening staff to move through and working with the applicant and the owner of the site there. But we expect construction to be starting in 25, and we hope it will be delivered a couple of years after that.
Okay, as long as it's going to be built faster than the Eglinton Cross.
I'm confident this set of builders.
Because I don't have that many years to go here, Amber. I can't wait for that. Okay. By the way, two thoughts on Mr. Christie, because I grew up in that area, and when I go by the water tower, it's not really a water tower, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Mr.
it's still there. Mm-hmm.
But not you necessarily personally went up there on a ladder or anything, and with your white paint, but the Mr. Christie part has been blocked out. So was that like because it's a existing brand name? There was some legal advice to get rid of the Mr. Christie?
I wish I had an answer for you on that.
Honestly,
This is the first question time I've got that question,
okay.
But we can look into
it. And secondly, when we do finally open this, can we have, I don't know, some artificial system that pipes in the smell of cookies? Because that was one of the best smells in the city, was going by the Mr. Christie.
Yeah, it reminds you of Campbell's as well. We lost our Campbell's
you can
recently.
smell, you're right, the tomato in the air. I miss that smell
the chicken
too.
Noodle soup. Yeah. I don't know that we'll be piping it in, but we will be having it's quite an extensive additional sort of network of mobility. We'll be having lots of other great things to support that community.
Yeah, but what's that going to smell
including
like?
bike lanes. I don't know. Good question. We'll see.
And then I know you're merely one of 25 on council, but why can't I bike to the island? It actually seriously pisses me off. There should be absolutely. Why can I? Already you got some kind of a tunnel going to the airport for the porter, right? Yeah. Why can't we bike on the other side to the Portlands area? It probably wouldn't even be very long bridge or some kind of bridge. And it can go up, lift up or whatever. I don't want to rely on a ferry. These things are aged and expensive to maintain and for a million reasons. I mean, I got a kayak, so now I'm kayaking, but I want to be able to bike to the Toronto Island.
Yeah, you know what? I think we might have had an item before us at council on this. I don't know that it went anywhere because I think it may
Is that
be
Diane Sachs? Who's putting in that good work? Because
I
good
can't
client of mine.
exactly recall. I think it actually might have been Councillor Burnside. So worth looking into. But yeah, I would defer to Deputy Mayor Malik. I know she's been working really hard on this, and we also have recently invested in some electric ferries to better support that getting people back and forth from the island.
Right.
I'm not sure if bridges in the future, but
okay, because it could be one of those ones that lifts up in case a boat or something needs to go by. I can visualize it. You know, I'm going to be talking to Ed Keenan in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to be revisiting this desire of mine, this passion of mine to be able to bike to the island.
Yeah. Well, also the other thing I'll just flag is, we do have budget season coming up, and that's always a fun time at City Hall where we recognize that we have a structural deficit. So it's very difficult for us to appropriately fund all of the responsibilities we have, including roads, TTC, all of the whole suite of things. And there's more needed than
you can
we
raise my
have.
property taxes. I just want the antenna. You know, it kind of irks me too here because we're in the home stretch here, so I have a few more questions.
No
but now
worries.
I'm shooting from the hip here, which is it's going to cost whatever it costs to rip up these bikes. And it's not just Bloor. I focus on Bloor because that's in your ward, okay? But University and Young, okay? And I use all of these, and they're great. So when they rip these up, it's going to be very expensive. And then the minute the Progressive Conservative Party is defeated, and that might not be for a while, but the minute it's defeated, we're going to spend all that money and put them right back. It's going to become a symbolic principle thing that these bike lanes are going back. It's just, to me, it's like, it's so ludicrous, the expense and all of this just to make it more dangerous and not to help at all. I actually had to go to Oshawa for work because I had to record with the good people at Rush. And I'm sitting there in this traffic and I was thinking, oh, what bike lane do I blame for this traffic? I mean, to even consider that removing these bike lanes would alleviate congestion in this city, asinine. You can quote me on that, asinine.
Oh, yeah.
And you can leave out the inane part.
I think there are a number of people who follow that train of thought. And in fact, was driving into City Hall just yesterday, and above a couple of the bridges going across the Gardiner, they have the exact question you've just raised, right?
Yeah, I've actually seen that.
Yeah, so I think it's important though, right, that we kind of all are thinking about this because, as you say, it's incredibly expensive to build infrastructure. It's incredibly disruptive to build infrastructure, and it takes time for people to adjust their patterns of behavior, et cetera, and to better utilize the infrastructure once it's in place. So to expect that it is gonna be the most bustling thing overnight is just not realistic, and neither is taking it out and expecting that that's going to make anything better. So there's so many critical priorities, including housing, including healthcare, that Torontonians and Ontarians desperately need our leadership to be thinking seriously about and better utilizing the precious resources that we are all paying into
Right.
and aren't always serving us as well as they should be.
Chris Drew comes out to my events. At least one time I saw you at Great Lakes Brewery for a TMLX event. In 2025, I got to get you back for another one.
Yeah, we'd love to join you.
Okay.
You got to give us like a 2 to 3 months heads up so we can get
Well,
on
you
the
know
calendar.
what? I'm thinking a Thursday in late June at Great Lakes Brewery, so I might have that heads up for you sooner than you think.
Great.
But Chris Drew, who I've seen at a few events, writes in, for people who haven't been, what are some of your favorite local restaurants in Long Branch? He wants me to also tell you, he tells people to check out Long Branch since there's a GO station there, plus multiple TTC routes and the waterfront trail. So Chris Drew, big fan of what's going on in Long Branch, my neighbor to the west.
Yeah, Long Branch is wonderful. We love Long Branch. Long Branch is most, I think, famously known for the trees, the parks, and the waterfront, which are all kind of my favorite things about Long Branch. Marie Curtis is one of them. Yeah, and there's Len Ford. There's a couple of really nice parks along the waterfront trail that you highlighted earlier. Right. There's some great restaurants down in Long Branch, and unfortunately I don't get out to them as much as I would like.
But in the second half of this term, you're going to make more time for Amber, and you and I are going to go to that was it 800 and something?
850 degrees.
850 Fahrenheit.
Yeah. The pizzeria, pasta shop. There's Holy Cannoli really close to there as well, which has been wonderful. We saw them out at the Santa Claus Parade and are fairly
George the Greek has got a good brunch place.
George the Greek is really good. Yeah. There's a number of ones and a very active BIA in the area as well. So, they do things like supporting the Christmas parade along the lakeshore. And so, it's a wonderful place and space. So get out to the Long Branch, folks, if you haven't come to check it out.
And I thought you were going to say, it's a wonderful life. I thought, tis the season, attaboy, Clarence. All right. Jonathan, this is because now that we celebrated Long Branch, I was contractually obligated to mention them. Okay. Jonathan says, I would be curious to know what Amber's doing to help improve New Toronto's. See, it's a little New Toronto heavy. I don't apologize for that, actually.
I'm a New Toronto gal.
Yeah, that's true. You are one of ours. Okay. You're one of us. To improve our business area, to make it more attractive for new local businesses to move into the numerous empty spots within the area. For the 7 years I've been here, Jonathan's been here 7. I've actually been here longer than 7. It feels like we've seen much less growth relative to Mimico. Boo, Mimico, boo. And Long Branch.
Again, thanks for the question. We work closely with our local BIAs, right? So we've got a Long Branch BIA, we've got a Lakeshore Village BIA. They meet monthly. My team is engaged with them. We support things like the Grilled Cheese Festival, which I hope folks are familiar with and are planning to participate in the next
Great Lakes
annual.
won it last year.
Yes.
And Ridley Funeral Home always does very well.
Absolutely.
It's Franklin Horner making the grilled cheese, not the funeral home.
That's it. So, we support a number of the festivals and sort of large community events that are taking place to bring people on down and invite them out. In terms of the growth, obviously there's things that the city can do in terms of the tax rate for small businesses, and we fund our BIA offices and we do cost matching for things like streetscape improvement within the BIAs and things like that. So we continue to be engaged on those opportunities and doing the best that we can. Like I said, I'm a New Toronto girl, so I do a lot of my own shopping, and I'm down at Kitchen Off 6. I go down to the Shoppers, right? Like my nail
the Clock
lady.
Factory is
the Clock
that
Factory.
Village Vinyl.
And I was just going to say, it still feels like a village here, right? In New Toronto. I go to, shout out to Angelina Nails on 10th Street,
but
right?
no actual grocery. We have a couple of places you can get your fruits and vegetables and stuff, but no actual grocery store in New Toronto. So you have to go to Mimico if you want to do a big load
or
for your family.
Or to Long Branch, yeah.
Boo.
Or to Alderwood, right? Yeah. We've got Farm Boy down in Alderwood.
Oh, they got Il Paisano up there.
And we've got Il Pai. I was going to call out Il Pai at the Long Branch thing, but I was actually, technically, I think that's Alderwood. So, anyways, but great pizza.
Shout out to South Etobicoke, regardless.
We love it here.
I'm not moving. Okay. So on our home stretch here, I did say that was the last question. I lied to you, Amber, because Stephen, and this is just an interesting...
You should be a politician.
You got to talk out both sides of the mouth. I learned the trick here. And you got to wink when you're calling someone out on their bullshit. That's important. I will call out someone on their bullshit and do a little wink, and then it's okay. Okay, so
we can still be friends.
It's not a bug in my eye or anything. Come on. Stephen with PH. I like that way of spelling. Stephen, no judgment against the V's. That's just my preference. But he goes, I'm curious to know how Amber prioritizes the requests she receives for local improvement. For example, speed zones, crosswalks, bike lanes. And I ask that to say that, funny, I think my buddy Tyler, who was campaigning for you, but I get all the credit for your election, not Tyler. But he's like, oh, we need more lights in the Sam Smith dog park. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, she must get 1 million of those requests. And then I was thinking, we need more bike pole lockup things outside of Mimico Arena, because there were 3. A car hit one and it's gone, and the ring part is missing from the other, so we're down to 1. Just 1. Okay, my son and I might be the only 2 humans who actually bike to his hockey practices, but that's another story in itself. So you must get 1 million of those kind of things. How do you prioritize those kind of requests from your constituents? Yeah,
I love the question. Thank you. So teamwork makes the dream work, baby. I do not do it on my own. I promise you that. We have 142,000 residents here just in Etobicoke Lakeshore in our little ward. And when I say little, I'm just kidding. It's the largest and fastest growing ward. So I have a team, an amazing team of colleagues who work in my office. We specifically have a group of 5 constituency advisors. They each have responsibility for various neighborhoods within the community, and they navigate and support residents through those kinds of, hyper-local or very individual or specific requests and needs. So we have a process. We've got a system. If folks ever need anything from me as their local counselor, we encourage them to send us an email or give us a call. Our email is counselor_Morley@toronto.ca for anybody in need. And there's a process. My deputy chief of staff, Ussi, who's with me here today, she oversees and supports those teams, or that teams rather. And as a former constituency assistant myself, we have a pretty good feel for how to navigate and how to work through the city. Sometimes it's a matter of education because people have requests or desires for things that are not possible or not under purview, or we have policies against, or et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of sort of, just constituency management in terms of receiving, providing information, and then getting into the queue. So for example, traffic calming was one of the examples. We're really proud actually of our record in the last 2 years of implementing traffic calming in our ward. We've gotten really, I think, quite good at it and have great relationships with staff. So when we hear from residents with requests like that, we know what to do. They often flow through community council. So if it's a tree cut requests, which please don't send those. We really hate those. We love our trees here in Etobicoke. But of course we deal with those fence, exemptions, and traffic calming are some of the things we do at community council. And my team and I work closely together to steward those opportunities.
So it's like a giant Google spreadsheet, I envision.
It's huge. Well, we've got a ClickUp, we've got a 4Action, got a constituency management system. It's been a whole thing, which we built from scratch because we inherited nothing when we started this job.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's a little insight into what was going on before. Okay. But so the 2 things we can add to the list, obviously, because this is a recorded, legally binding conversation, is, of course, there will be more lights in the Sam Smith dog park. That's for the VP of Sales, Tyler Campbell. And I'm going to you're going to fix those 2 screwed up bike posts outside of Mimico Arena.
So we got the Mimico Arena note for sure. We'll have to double check because we do have some policies around park lighting generally. So that it would be an opportunity for education, but we'll take it back.
Well,
and,
I will say this. Tyler does
out.
Need to be educated.
Yeah.
So that won't be the first time we educate him.
And shout out to you, Tyler. Thank you for helping us on the campaign.
Absolutely. And I actually, my son plays on the same team as TJ's son. TJ, of course, was, I believe, the person who put me in touch with you back in 2022 when you made your Toronto Mike debut.
TJ's a legend. We have big love for TJ. He was part of our campaign team and still a good friend in the neighborhood.
And just before I thank our sponsors and wrap up this episode, you're now your deputy mayor. You said there's 4 in this city?
There are 4 of us, correct.
Okay. You're a first-time councillor, 2 years deep into this important role.
2 years to go.
I peg you as a future mayor of this city.
Woo.
Okay? Honestly, and I'm telling you. So you had my vote 2 years ago. You'll have my vote again. Am I aiming too low? Like, are you thinking MPP, maybe MP, or maybe PM? Any desire to become mayor of the city one day?
I'm taking it day by day. And, ultimately, I am very much a servant leader. I believe that we need to have good people doing good work to move us all forward in a better direction. And I'm deeply devoted to that. So wherever the call calls me, I will more than likely put my hand up and show up. But for now, it's all about Etobicoke Lakeshore. It's all about Toronto. And we're so proud and privileged to be here and hopefully making our community proud and confident in our ability to do this work.
And Amber, I love this very much. You're very good on the mic, chatting with me down here. We should have an official Amber Morley podcast recorded out of this basement, TMDS production. That's me, myself, and I. And this would be a great way for you to communicate with your constituents.
I love it. I really do. And we are trying to amplify that. We're taking on a little bit less workload at City Hall and trying to be a lot more engaged locally and finding more ways to bring people in and along this really important journey because we all got a role to play. So I will follow up with you on that offer, Mike. Thank you.
And thanks for dropping by today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. And that brings us to the end of our 1,605th show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. I'm on Blue Sky, as I said, at torontomike.com, and hopefully Amber's there at some point soon, and I can tell everybody this is the real Amber Morley, except no substitutes. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Southern Etobicoke's own Great Lakes Brewery. Southern Etobicoke's own Ridley Funeral Home. I'm going to go with it. Southern Etobicoke's own Moneris, because they're at Bloor in Islington. Come on. RecycleMyElectronics.ca, the guy who runs that show, does live in Southern Etobicoke. And this somehow Palma Pasta's in the mix, even though they're in Mississauga. Come on, what's going on? But thank you, Palma Pasta. Don't leave without your lasagna. See you all for the annual Festivus episode with my buddy Elvis. That records on Monday. See you all then.